This is Byron from Juniper Tree and Beyond, and I endorse this message.
We are going to continue to look at the false prophet Henderson and see very clearly the deception that this man speaks. Hello and welcome to part 3 on false prophet exposed. Shock. That's right, shock. Horror. Disgust. Now, if you've watched the first 2 videos of this series, you would have been shocked by what you saw and heard. You would have been disgusted by what you saw and heard. But this video exposes even more of the strange mind of a false prophet and the lies that a false prophet will speak. So if you have not seen the first 2 videos in this series, please watch them first. We are going to continue to look at the false prophet Henderson and see very clearly the deception that this man speaks. I will say this: beware of this false prophet who is now exposed. This is what Henderson said about 9 months ago, and in the last video I spoke about this. 9 months ago, this is what Henderson said: urgent, sound the shofar, the rapture now. The door is closing. That's right, urgent, sound the shofar, rapture now, the door is closing. He made 3 very clear points, or actually make it 4 very clear points. He said urgent, which means it's extremely urgent. That was 9 months ago. He said sound the shofar, so he's saying that if we sound the shofar, something's going to happen. He then says rapture now, which means the rapture was to take place then when he was saying it, and also the door is closing. Guess what? He prophesied that the door is closing. He is implying that the door to salvation, to the body of Christ, is closing. The rapture is to take place now. That's what he was implying. It's very, very true. Extremely true was what he thought he was saying. So yes, on the 6th of June 2019, Henderson implied clearly that the door is closing and that the rapture was taking place now. Yes, Henderson prophesied that the door of salvation into the body of Christ was closing, the door of heaven was closing, and that the rapture was happening right at that moment. Do you know that now means now? Now does not mean later. Now does not mean tomorrow. Now does not mean 6 months later or 10 days later. Now means now. So on the 6th of June, Henderson prophesied that the rapture was taking place then. And he said the door is closing, and that was his excuse for the rapture. The door closing equals the rapture. Yes, that's what he said. But look at what he then says only 10 days later. 10 days later, on the 16th of June 2019, he says this: sound the alarm, the rapture is soon. Heaven's door is open. That's strange. In the previous video, he said to sound the shofar because the rapture was happening then and the door was closing. But now he's saying sound the alarm. Rapture is soon. And the door is now open. Isn't it strange how Henderson has control of the door? Isn't it strange how Henderson can prophesy when the rapture will take place? On the 6th of June, he says, sound the shofar, the last trumpets to sound, and the rapture is happening now, and the door is closed. But now, 10 days later, he says, sound the alarm, the rapture is soon. No longer now, but soon. It's in the future. And he's saying heaven's door is now open. It is very strange what Henderson does. That's right, on the 6th of June 2019, Henderson states that the door is closing and the rapture is now. And then, only 10 days later, he changes his mind. On the 16th of June, which is 10 days later, he states to sound the alarm, and that the rapture is now soon, and heaven's door is now open. He is confused. He said the door was closing, but now he says the door is open. He says the rapture is now, but then he says it's soon. It just gets worse and worse and worse, as you will see in the next video, where we again look at this false prophet Henderson. Henderson is truly a false prophet and is full of lies and deceit. He says one thing and then changes his mind when he suits himself. He speaks as though he were God and as though he is in control of heaven's door and the door of salvation. He constantly goes backwards and forwards, changing the day of the rapture to being now, to being soon, to closing the door of heaven, to opening the door of heaven. He is all over the place. I'm wondering what sort of dreams he is having. Maybe they are nightmares. I know one thing. He's not hearing from God, because God does not go around saying the things that he is saying. Henderson thinks that he alone can change the rapture date whenever he wants. So I'll say this: danger. Danger. Be very, very careful of this false prophet Henderson, because once you start to look at what he says, and how some days later he goes and changes completely what he has said, you see the deceitfulness, you see the lies, you see the seduction. Now, if I were to say to you, I am going out the door now, and that's it, I'm going out the door, it's finished, I'm going, but then 10 days later I'm still at the door and I'm saying, I've changed my mind, I'm going to be going out the door soon, the door is still open, I haven't closed it yet, I'm still standing inside the room. You think, this person's gone bonkers, he's gone crazy. Well, that's what Henderson does. One moment he says the door is closing and the rapture is now, and then he suddenly changes it and says, sound the alarm, the rapture is going to happen soon, and the door is now open. So he must think he has control of the door, and he must think he has control over the alarm clock, and he must think he has control over the clock itself, and he must think he has control over the day and the hour of the rapture. But I know this, Jesus said no man knows, not even the angels of heaven. So if Jesus is telling the truth, that means Henderson is telling a great lie. Please share this with all other believers, because they need to know the truth about this false prophet Henderson. Thank you.